In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at the psoas muscle. We'll look at a little bit of its anatomy, as you can see on the screen now, and then we're going to cut to the gym and we're going to go through 2 stretches where you can start lengthening that muscle and then start reducing your lordosis using them. Now, we're going to focus on the origins and insertions, which will help explain the stretches that we're doing and why we're doing them. So, what we've got here is you've got the origin, which is what I basically describe as the start of the muscle, and then you've got the insertion, which is the end of the muscle. So the origin, which is the start, you can see transverse process of T12 to L1 and the lateral aspects of the discs between them. So basically, it's this whole area here. Now the T12 bit will make a little bit more sense as to why I'm explaining that and highlighting that. But that's where the muscle starts, and then as you can see on the diagram, it continues all the way down through the pelvis on basically to the top of the leg here. So it's sort of the inside of the top of the leg. So when we are stretching this, basically we need to take away the start of the muscle away from the end of the muscle to make it longer. So that's where we need to understand these origins and insertions to be able to do that. And just to quickly explain the transverse processes, obviously on both sides of the vertebra, you've got these bits that stick out at the side. Those are the transverse processes. So it starts on the transverse processes, goes right down the lower back, through the pelvis, and into the lower leg. So what we will now do is we will now cut into and to the gym and then talk about 2 stretches where we're able to stretch this muscle out to give you a little bit of relief from your lordosis. Now that you've learnt about the anatomy of the psoas, what we're now going to do is we're going to put that into practice and learn how we can lengthen that muscle. Now we're going to start in stages, so we're going to start with a nice easy exercise and we're going to build a few pieces with regards to what you need to do with your anatomy, and then we're going to gradually make the exercise a little bit harder as we go. So what we're going to do to start with, we're going to start by lying on the floor. So we're going to come down into this position. So we can start with our knees bent to start with, because what we want to be able to do is, if obviously as we're lordotic, we're going to have a big gap between the floor and our lower back. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to pull the tummy in and flatten and close that gap between the floor and the lower back. So we should just be able to fit our fingers underneath our lower back, and then the rest of the hand should be sort of pushed up against the side of my back. So that's part number 1. Now, because the psoas joins on to the top part of the leg here, what we're then going to do is we're going to maintain this tension in the torso and we're going to lengthen just one leg. And then we should be able to hold this in position, because the most important part is this position of the torso. What we can then do is take the other leg nice and straight. So again, we're maintaining. What we're not trying to do is come up so my whole hand and whole arm can go under. We're trying to keep tension and hold the pelvis in place and hold the spine in place. So that's part number 1 that we need to be able to master before we can go on to the second part. So the second part, we're going to again come into this position. Now you can do it with both legs straight or you could do it with one leg straight. But what we're going to do, because now the other end of the muscle, so the starting part of the muscle, is up on the 5 vertebra and T12. What we're then going to do is again hold this position. We've got our legs straight, so we've lengthened the muscle that way. Then what we're going to do is come up with the arm and we're going to lengthen, because we're extending the upper back, and we're going to lengthen the muscle from the top as well. So we're lengthening it from the bottom with the leg, we're lengthening it from the top with the arm, which is extending the thoracic part of the spine and extending that muscle. So we're getting full sort of length through here. Now, because we are led down, muscles react very differently. So it's very easy to get into that position led down. So what we're going to do next is we're now going to come up out of the lying position. So muscles will start to react a little bit differently, but we're going to look at how we can extend the psoas from the bottom and from the top by coming out of the lying position. In this second part, we're going to be on one knee. So we're going to come down onto one knee, and what we're going to start with is the knee directly below the hip. So we're in that position. Then we've got 90 degrees at this leg. So we've got the ankle directly below this knee. Now what we want to be able to do, just like we did when we were lying, we're going to pull the tummy in, we're going to flatten off that hollow in that lower back. So we don't want to be in this lordotic position, we want to have it flattened off. So we're repositioning the pelvis, we're repositioning the spine, and that may already create a little bit of a stretch in this area here, which is stretching other hip flexors at the front. What we're then going to do, because what we've now done is we've begun to lengthen the muscle from the bottom, is we can just go into a slightly more hip extension. So now this hip comes just in front of the knee here. So we're just extending it from the bottom. What we're then going to do is, much like we did when we were lying down, we're going to do the same from the top. So we're going to bring the arm of the same side up above the head. We're going to try and keep the head in position. We're going to keep the tummy locked. We're going to keep this pelvis in position, which is then keeping this position of the spine in place. Now, if it feels a bit easier, you can bend the arm and just bring it behind the head, because the important bit is to get the arm up nice and high. So we're holding this position. You may then start to feel the stretch come up into the abdomen, which is where we're then starting to get the psoas. So that's two sort of easy progressions to start lengthening the psoas in an easy position and then in a slightly harder position. To quickly summarise what we've talked about during this video is we've talked about the psoas muscle itself, and that it joins onto the inside of the leg at the top and on each of the 5 lumbar vertebrae and also onto T12. So there are 2 ways of lengthening the muscle, from the bottom with the leg and from the top with the upper back, but we can achieve that by putting the arm up over the head. So that's part number 1, is the anatomy. And then part number 2 is putting that into practice. So we started by lying down. The most important part of what we do is reduce that lordotic curve in the spine by bracing the abdominals, and also you can also use the glutes to do that as well. What we can then do is in the lying position is lengthen one leg and then bring the arm up over the head, again lengthening the psoas from the bottom using the leg and the top using the arm. And then the final part, because lying down, muscles tend to relax and it's very easy to stretch them, so they can relax more, so you, in some respects, don't feel them stretching because they relax more. We've come up onto one knee. And what we've then done is we've put the knee directly below the hip. We've then extended a little bit, again, keeping the tummy tight, the spine in position as we do so, and then we lift the arm over the head. So that is a nice, simple way of lengthening the psoas muscle to reduce your lordosis. Many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Christopher Holt Training. I will speak to you in the next tutorial.